hello to all you lovely people who are practicing with me out there. Today we're going to be doing a lot with hips and shoulders. So you can actually use alignment tools here if you wish. I have a yoga strap which you can replace with either a tie or a belt. I have blocks and bricks, so flat block to sit on if you wish, and a block to use for extension of arms or also to sit on. If you haven't got these, you can use books to just elevate the hips a little bit when we do certain poses. So have all these sort of at the front of your mat, so they're all handy to grab a hold of when we're ready for them. Make sure you have some water, and let's get started. So coming into child's pose, so our first hip opening pose. Knees as wide as the mat, bring the big toes together, slowly bring the sit bones back towards the heels. Then start to reach the hands forward to bring the chest down towards the floor, bringing maybe the forehead to the mat. So the shoulders have gone into flexion, so we're lifting them up nice and high, and we're trying to get that little bit of thoracic extension here. So the thoracic is the space between the shoulder blades and in between the rib cage. That's the part of the thoracic spine. Start to just give those hips a little wiggle from side to side. We're taking some compression through those hips and a little bit of external rotation as we've got the knees nice and wide. Take a moment here to scan the body from the fingertips down to the toe tips, just having a check-in with how your body feels today as you've arrived in practice, making sure you're looking after any injuries, any tight spots, just being mindful as you move through the movements. Maybe on your next in-breath, you walk the hands a little further forward, and on your out-breath, you try and bring those seats to the feet a little closer, feeling that expansion through the shoulders, through the armpits, down into the rib cage. Just feeling how your left and right sides feel. Maybe the shoulder on the right's a little tighter than the left, or vice versa. Maybe the hip flexors feel a little uncomfortable on one side compared to the other. Just always knowing how your body moves and how your body works. We're going to take some lateral flexion, so take the hands over to your right side of the mat. Bring your left hand on top of the right. Encourage that left sit bone back towards that left heel. And then just bring that forehead back down to the floor. Let the chest sink to the inside of that right thigh. As you feel that stretch down the left side of the body into that left hip. And a contraction down the right waist. Just bringing those ribs a little closer towards those hips on that right side. Try and breathe that expansive breath into that left rib cage. Taking nice, long, easy breaths in. Filling those lungs with air as you breathe in deeply. And then as you breathe out, contracting those intercostal muscles to push those lungs to expel all that air. And then on your next breath in, walk the hands back through centre, take them over to the left side. Bring your right hand on top of the left, nudge your right hip back towards your right heel. Contracting the waist on the left, bringing the rib and hip towards each other. And taking the rib and hip further away from each other on the right side, feeling that stretch through those intercostal muscles in between those ribs. Expanding on the inhale, contracting on the exhale. Then bringing those hands back to centre. Take a breath out here in neutral spine and just let everything sink into the middle. We're going to make our way up into a tabletop position now. So coming and bringing our heel of the hands underneath our shoulders, our knees underneath our hips, tops of the feet flat, to take that regular cat-cow spinal articulation, just to warm that spine up. So the breath in, we lift up the head, we lift up the bum, we let the belly drop down towards the floor. And as you breathe out, we tuck the chin into the chest, the tailbone tucks, the centre of the spine lifts. Go through those two places with the breath. The expansion of the front side of the body on the inhale, and then contract that front of the body on the exhale, expanding the back of the body. Really feel like you're pushing into those spaces in between the shoulder blades as you take it into cat. And then feel like you're flaring those ribs when you bring it into cow. Those two places, flexion and extension of the spine. So we've done lateral flexion as we was in child pose, and flexion and extension as we're in this tabletop position. When you next come back through the centre, hold it in the centre space. We'll take rotation now, so lift up your right hand, send it up to the ceiling, gaze up to the thumb, and then thread that right hand in between the left hand and the left knee, bringing that right side of either the head or the ear to the mat. If you feel you found a comfortable space, take the left hand behind the back, maybe find the thigh on the right side. Keep pushing into the right forearm, top of the right hand, to try and rotate and twist that body a little bit more. Still feeling the weight in that left knee as much as you are in the right. It does make you want to push over to that right side. Try and lift that left shoulder a little higher by pushing into that right forearm to help assist that movement. And then bringing that left hand back down by the side of the face. Bring that right hand back up and out to the side, rotate to the right, bring that right hand back down to meet the left. Same on the left side. The breath in raises the hand of the left to the ceiling, breath out, we thread. We bring that left side of the head or the ear to the mat. If you found something comfortable here, push into that left forearm, bring that right hand behind the back, maybe find a bind onto that left thigh. And then turn and twist the shoulders, trying to turn the shoulders to that right side. The hips stay neutral to the front short edge of the mat. Push the weight into the right knee as much as you are the left knee. Push the weight into the tops of the feet. Holding just for one more breath, maybe expanding and opening the chest a little more to the right. And then release that right hand back down by the side of the face. Lift that left hand back up and out to the side. Then bring it back down to meet the right. So keeping the knees where they are, walk the hands further forward to the front of the mat. We're going to take those arms into flexion again, those shoulders. Start to sink the chest down, but keep the hips low. If you wish to use a block under the forehead, bring maybe that block underneath there, or a book if you're using a book. And then just feel that chest sink down towards the mat. Feel that space underneath the armpits, stretching, getting into that connective tissue that goes from the fingertips down to the toe tips and up to the top of the head. If you're doing this practice in the morning, maybe this feels a little tight for you. If you're doing it midday, maybe that body feels a little more supple, maybe a little more pliable. In the evening, maybe you're feeling a little fatigued from the day's practice, from the day's work. Just holding in this full flexion of the arms just for another breath. That compression through the hips. Little arch through that lower lumbar spine. But try and take it up into that thoracic spine as well. One more breath here. Then bringing that chest away from the mat again. Just bring the hands just a little further forward. And then start to drop the hips towards the heel of the hands, but they don't come to the mat. So we're just in a hovering space, knees down, tops of the feet flat. Then take the hips over to the right side. Bring them all the way back towards the heels of the feet. Take them over to the left side. Bring them back then towards the heel of the hands, keeping those hips in a hover. And again, rolling around towards that right side. Back towards the heels, over to the left side, and then back towards the heel of the hands. Then take it in the opposite direction, so the hips go over to the left, they come back towards the heels, they go over to the right, and then back towards the heel of the hands. Notice how the outside of the hips feel as you send them into the sides of the mat. And as you send them towards the heels, just noticing how that hip socket joint is moving as you move through these spaces. When you get back to the front, then start to walk the hands back, bringing yourself into a kneeling position, bringing your heels and your sit bones towards each other. Now, if this doesn't feel comfortable, feel free just to place a book or a block just underneath those heels, just to elevate the hips. This will just make it feel a little more comfortable. Take a hold of either your strap or your belt and just bring your hands quite wide. So we're going to be bringing this strap up and over the heads. So as you breathe in, take that strap up towards the ceiling. And as you breathe out, start to release that strap back down the back of the body, bringing the strap towards the base of the spine. On your breath in, bring that strap back up towards the ceiling. Notice how both sides feel. On your breath out, bring that strap back down towards the thighs. Do that a few times. Your breath in brings it up to the top, and your breath out releases it down to the back of the body. Breath in, raise that back up to the ceiling. So use the breath to make the movement. Breath out, bring that strap back down towards the thighs. Again, breath in, raise up. Breath out, release the strap to the back of the body. Breath in, raise up to the ceiling. Just getting that full mobility through those shoulders. Breath out, release that strap back down towards the knees. So bringing your right hand up and bring your left hand behind the back. So walking the hands down the strap as much as you can. So the hand comes up of the left towards the right hand. So we're bringing our right elbow to point up towards the ceiling, and we're stretching through that tricep muscle on the right side. Try not to flare the ribs, so bring the ribs back, draw the lower belly up and tuck the tailbone down. Start to walk that left hand maybe a little closer towards the right hand. So you have this cow face pose with the arms, so the right hand is creeping towards the left. If you don't need to use the strap and you can actually reach with the fingertips, it's just bringing those fingertips to a bind. So holding it here for a few breaths. Still staying in that kneeling position if you're happy. If those legs start to feel a little bit uncomfortable, or the ankles, just bring those hips over the knees. So placing yourself in whatever comfortable position you feel you're working well with. Try and feel like that left hand's creeping a little closer up towards the right each time. Maybe that give in your range of movement happens as you hold in the pose. This will be restricted through the tricep muscles. It may be a little restricted through your internal rotation of your left shoulder to bring that left hand behind the back. Doesn't matter if you're here, just getting that movement with the shoulders. Then release those hands, bring that strap back maybe around in front of you, and we'll take it on the other side. So this time your left hand reaches up, your right hand goes behind the back of the body, taking a hold of the strap if you're using. Bring that left hand down to the top of the spine, walk that right hand up the strap to maybe find a connection of the fingertips eventually. Think about the lower back. Are you starting to flare those ribs? If you are, draw those ribs back, lift up the lower belly and drop the tailbone down. Keep that core center engaged at all times. When you're lifting the arms, if you've got little restriction through the lift in flexion, quite often you take it by flaring the ribs to make it seem like you've gone further. Remember, if you want to and you can, interlace the fingers rather than using the strap. Feeling that stretch through those triceps on that left side. We have an internal rotation of that right shoulder to take that right hand behind the back. So working into these shoulder spaces. We'll just hold it here just for a couple more breaths. Maybe noticing how your fingers can come a little closer as you hold the pose and those muscles start to stretch and lengthen. I really feel this into the armpit on this left side, just into where those lat muscles join into that armpit. Then release the hands Just give those roll of the shoulders, give those arms a shake. Then we're going to take it into eagle arms. So we're going to be stretching through these deltoid muscles. Arms come up in front of you. Your right elbow comes under your left. You take a bend into the elbows, either bring the back of the hands together or the palms together, so you've got a double bind. Once you've found wherever the arms want to come to, raise those elbows up to shoulder height or higher, maybe up to gaze height. So you're in this eagle position with the arms lifting and lengthening through those rhomboid muscles in between the shoulder blades. And then from this position, using the oblique muscles, start to turn that body towards our mirror image you hear, your left side. Hold it here for a breath, knowing that you're not using any external help to rotate. Keep the hips facing the front of the mat. The twist comes from the waist and the shoulders turn. Come back through centre and then take it to the other side. So turn and twist from the waist. Squeeze those right obliques as you turn around to that right side. Then come back to the middle. Release the arms. This time, other direction. So with you, it's the left elbow under the right. Turn and find either the back of the hands or the palms in a double bind. Raise the elbows up to shoulder height or gaze height, holding it here for a few breaths. If you're starting to fatigue in the feet or the legs are starting to irritate, come away from the heels with the bum and come and stack the body over the knees. If you want to take that twist and turn to your left. If you've come up away from the heels, try not to let the hips come with you because you've got no support of those sit bones grounded to anything. When you turn and twist, quite often the hips twist as well. So keep those hips facing that front edge of the mat. Hold it there for a breath. Come back through centre and take it to the other side. So feeling that squeeze of the obliques as we twist towards your right. Hips stay neutral to the front edge of the mat if you're lifted away from the heels. If you're down on the heels, that supports you, so you maybe can twist a little further because those hips won't want to come with you because they're supported by the floor or the heels. One more breath here. Come back to the centre, release the arms, give those arms a shake. So we've worked into all parts of those shoulders in this position. Now we're going to go into our hips. So choice can be either bring a block to in between the feet and keep the knees together, tops of the feet flat. From this position, walk the hands behind the bum, fingertips pointing in, and try and squeeze the shoulder blades together and expand through the chest. From this position, we're going to push into the feet and raise those hips up towards the ceiling. So we're feeling the squeeze of the glutes and an expansion through those quads into those hip flexors. As you breathe out, bring that bum back down to the floor. Keep going into these two spaces. Maybe you don't need the block, so you'll have a little bit more movement here. So then the bums come to the mat. So as you breathe in, push into the tops of the feet, the shins to lift the hips, squeeze the bum. As you breathe out, start to bring those bums back down to the mat. 2 more times. Push into the legs, lift up the hips, squeeze the bum. As you breathe out, bring that bum back down. So our hips are in internal rotation here. And again, lift those bums up towards the ceiling and then bring them back down to the floor. So choice can either to be staying here, keeping those hips internal rotated, or if you want to come a little lower, come down onto the elbows. Now, if you've got a block underneath you, this will probably be as far as you can go. If you're not using a block and you want to take it into that full stretch of the front side of the body, start to lower the shoulders down towards the mat, bringing those shoulders towards the floor, head grounded, and just hold it in this space for a few breaths. So we're going to feel a stretch through the hip flexors, into the quads, an internal rotation of the hips. Try and draw those ribs down, holding it in whatever position you are. It may be flat like me, it may be onto the forearms, you may be still up on those hands. Whatever your body allows you to do. One more breath in this position. Then if you're with me, you need to come back safely up onto the forearms. If you're on the forearms, you start to come back up onto the hands. If you're already on the hands, start to walk the hands forward, bring the knees back in towards each other and bring the feet together. So we're going to take it into a back bend now. So coming up onto our knees, hips over the knees, shoulders over the hips. Knees hip width apart, still feet, tops of the feet flat. Bring the hands behind the back, little fingers touching at the lower spine. Push the hips forward first, then start to raise up through the ribs, lift up through the chest, the gaze. Take it into whatever back bend you wish to go to. So maybe you stay here. Maybe you want to bring one hand down towards one heel and keep it here. Maybe you want to bring the other hand down to the other heel. But if you've brought both hands down and the hips have dropped back, try and push those hips back forward. Feeling that expansion through the front side of the body, the contraction through the back. Only go to what space feels comfortable for your body. That may be the hands still on the lower spine. If the hands are down on the heels to come out safely, bring one hand back to the lower back. Bring the other hand back to the lower back. Lift up through the chest. Bring the knees back together. Bring the seat towards the feet. Bring the bum back to the heels. Just move and twist the body from side to side. Just neutralise that spine. And then bring that body over the thighs. Bring the top of the head onto the mat. Finding yourself into a position, a fetal position. Just relaxing through that back. Stretching through that lower part of the body where we've taken our back bends. Holding it here just for one more breath. And then lifting those shoulders again back over those hips. Find a tabletop position. Step then both feet back to a plank position. Hold it in plank for a couple of breaths to straighten out those legs. We've been on those knees for quite a while. So maybe you want to feel that push of the heels back, the lengthening through that back chain of muscles into those hamstrings, those calves, those Achilles. And then start to paddle the feet as you lift up the hip, bringing yourself back to a downward facing dog. One heel coming down at a time, just working those hamstrings, telling them that they're going to be doing a little bit of stretch. And then bring those heels to stillness if you're happy to do so. Widen the legs so the feet come off the mat, or probably a little wider. So we're in a wide leg downward dog now. So try and feel that full flexion of the shoulders. So try and push that chest back without arching through the lower part of the back. Still feel like those ribs and hips are tethered. Those ribs aren't flaring. We're trying to relax those shoulders down and towards those hips, creating a little space in between the ears and the collarbones. A little micro bend in the elbows if you can. Nice wide fingers so we've got a good support through the hands. Maybe those heels have come all the way to the floor, maybe not, maybe you're hovering away from the mat. But just keep encouraging that chest back, trying not to feel that lower back pinching, still keeping that core engagement, holding it in that wide leg downward facing dog for a few more breaths. Really working into these shoulders, getting that thoracic spine into extension. One more breath. Then start to walk the feet back into the centre, bringing them back to hip width apart. Then holding it in your down dog, maybe just walk the feet in slightly closer towards the body so you have a slightly shorter stance of down dog. Put your weight into your right hand, bring your left hand towards either the knee of the right, the shin of the right, or the ankle of the right leg. Turn and twist to look under that right armpit. Keep both hips nice and level. Use that left hand as an anchor to help you twist to look under that right side of the body. Keep pushing into that right hand, strengthening those shoulders as we hold the weight over that one right hand. Then bring that left hand back to meet the right. Then put the weight into your left hand. Bring your right hand either to the knee, the shin, the ankle. Turn and twist to look under that left armpit. Trying to rotate from the waist, hips stay neutral. Using all the strength of that left arm, left shoulder to hold the weight. Keep pushing down into the feet. One more breath here. Then release that right hand back to meet the left. Squeeze those heels back. Step it back to your original length down dog, maybe just one step back. Raise up your right leg. Bring a bend into your right knee. Push your right foot over to the left side of the mat. Keep shoulders neutral to the short edge of the mat. So we have again a twist through the waist, an opening through the hip. Left heel is squeezing down towards the mat as much as you can. Holding here just for one more breath. Then bring that right foot back down to meet the left foot. Bring your weight into your right foot, lift your left leg. Bend your knee, push your left foot to the right side. Turn and twist the waist, shoulders stay neutral. Left hip is opening into external hip rotation. Bring that left foot back down to meet the right. Just take the pressure off the shoulders for a moment, coming down onto the knees. Give those arms a shake. Just relax those shoulders. Take a hold of your strap and we'll take those shoulders back into some mobility. So widen the arms as much as you need to. Bringing those sit bones to the heels or bringing that block underneath those bums. Lift those arms up towards the ceiling. As you breathe out, bring those hands back down towards the base of the back. Try and keep that belly drawn back, lower belly lifted. Breath in, raise those hands back up to the ceiling. Breath out, lower that strap back down to the front. We'll do 2 more of these. Lift those hands up to the ceiling. Try not to flare the ribs. As you breathe out, start to lower that strap to the bum. Keep tucking that tailbone under. Lift that strap and lower back to the front. We'll take 1 more of these. Lift the strap up to the ceiling and then bring that strap back down to the bum. Lift up to the ceiling and back to those thighs. Release that strap down by the side. Make your way back into downward facing dog. Lifting the hips, squeezing those heels back. Take your right foot to the outside of the right hand into our lizard position. So this is where you could use a block again if you want to come down onto your elbows or onto your forearms. So you can either stay up on the hands if you wish, dropping the hips down, the back knees lifted away from the floor. If you want to take it deeper into that right hip, bring both elbows maybe onto a block or a book if you're using a book, and just try and let yourself settle here. Keeping that head as much in line with the spine as you can rather than letting it sink. Keep that head lifted. If you feel you can go a little bit deeper than this and you don't need a block, you can move the block out to the side and come all the way onto the forearms, reaching down towards the mat. Again, try and keep that head long. Keep pushing the weight into both sides of the shoulders, of the forearms. Keep pushing into the big toe side of that right foot, feeling that openness through the hips. So remember, you can be on a block with the forearms, or you could have stayed up on those hands. Just work your range of movement where your body wants to take you. If you're down on the hands or on a block, come back, on the mat with the forearms or on a block, come back up onto the hands. When you're back up onto the hands, drop down that back left knee and untuck the toes. Bring that left heel in towards that left bum cheek. You can either hold it here by using hamstring stretch, or you can take the right hand up and over to take a hold of that left foot, turning and twisting through the waist, turning the shoulders to the right side. If you've managed to grab the foot, maybe you squeeze that foot a little closer in towards the bum. So here we're getting into those quads, getting into those hips, releasing tension that we hold in the pelvis, tension we can hold in lower backs. Try and find that twist through the waist a little more maybe. If you're holding that foot, maybe squeeze that left foot a little closer. You should feel it through that front thigh on the left side. One more breath in this position. Then release that left foot back down to the floor and tuck the toes under. Lift the back knee, send your right foot back to meet the left, lift the hips back to the ceiling. Shoulders again and arms going into flexion, hips going into contraction, and we're stretching that back chain of muscles of those legs. So same thing on your left side. So stepping your left foot towards the outside edge of your left hand, help it through if you need to. Keep off that back knee, the back toes tucked under. Sink the hips, so maybe this side feels a little tighter. It certainly does for me. So you can stay up on the hands, or you can bring that book underneath the shoulders and bring those forearms to the mat and interlace the fingers if you wish. Keep pushing into that big toe edge of your left foot. If you want to take it deeper and you don't need the block, bring those forearms all the way down to the mat. Trying to keep that head in line with the spine, pushing into the forearms, pushing the chest cavity into that space between the shoulder blades. Try to encourage the right heel back to straighten that back leg as much as you can. Just holding here wherever you are, either on the forearms, on a block, on the hands. Feeling that opening through those hips. If you're down on forearms, come back up onto the hands. If you have a block, remove the block. Drop down with the back knee and uncurl those back toes. Then squeeze that right heel in towards the right bum cheek. If you're happy to stay here, using the hamstrings to squeeze that foot in, feel free. If you're coming with me, take your left hand behind to take a hold of that right foot. And then squeeze that right foot in towards the bum. Turn and twist the shoulders, turn through the waist. Sink through the hips. Feel that stretch down the quad muscle at the front of that right thigh. The more we stretch through those thighs, the more we release any tension in the pelvis, the more we release tension in those lower backs. Squeeze that foot a little closer if you're grabbing hold of it. Rotate maybe a little more through the waist. One more breath here. Then releasing that right foot back down and tucking the toes under, lifting the back knee, stepping your left foot back to meet the right. Take a little paddle through those feet, nod and shake of the heads. And then we're going to start introducing some vinyasas. So coming forward to a plank on the inhale, I'm taking option 1. Dropping the knees and tucking the toes, elbows graze the ribs as you release down to the mat. Lift up the chest, little baby cobra, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Then release the chest back down, tuck under the toes. Bring the chest back towards those thighs. Push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips and squeeze those heels back. Option 2, if you want to come with me, come forward to a plank on the inhale, either drop the knees or release all the way to the floor with a straight body, elbows grazing the ribs, untuck the toes when you release to the mat, lift up the chest, squeeze the shoulder blades back, release the chest back down, tuck under those toes, bring the chest back towards the thighs, push into the hands, push into the feet, lift up the hips, squeeze those heels back to downward facing dog. Option 3, if you're coming with me, come forward to a plank position, releasing to a hover, elbows graze the ribs, the body only lowers to elbow height, then roll over the toes, lift up the chest, thighs stay away, squeezing the shoulder blades back, then taking it back to down dog, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels down. Coming back down onto the knees, separate the knees as wide as the mat, bring the big toes together, sit bones to the heels, foreheads to the floor. Maybe taking a moment in child's pose, or if you want to take on some fluids, feel free to do so. Remember, through the practice, it's your choice when you take your hydration. Try and keep both sides equal as much as you can. So we will need the strap near the front of the mat on this next little part of the flow, and we're going to be going into high lunge and doing those shoulder mobilities there. So bringing yourself back into a tabletop position wherever you're coming from, either hydration or child's pose. Step the feet back, keep the hips in a nice long line, and then lift the hips back to down dog, squeezing those heels back. Your breath in, raise up with your right leg. Take a bend into your knee, open the hip out, external rotation and rotation of the waist. Bring those hips back in line. Bring the knee into the chest. Take a gaze in between the hands as you step your right foot through. Take a hold of your straps or belts. As you bring the shoulders over the hips, take a hold of the strap. Widen the arms, keep bent into the front knee, straight through the back leg. Think about the lower belly lifting up and the tailbone going down. Rib and hips tether throughout the whole of this movement. Your breath in, raise those hands up to the ceiling. Try not to flare the ribs. Breath out, release those arms to the lower back. And again, raise those hands up to the ceiling. On your breath out, release those hands back to the front. 2 more. Breath in, raise up. Breath out, release the hands to the back. Breath in, raise up. Try not to flare those ribs. Breath out, release back to the front. 1 more time in both directions. Release down to the back. Feel that mobility through the shoulders. Feel the stableness through the hips as we're holding ourselves in lunge position. When you get back to the front, just keep a hold of the strap. Step forward onto your right leg and hook that strap underneath your left foot. Keeping a hold of the strap in your left hand. Just going to move back slightly so I don't kick the window. Keep your right hand on your right hip. Strengthen and lengthen the front of the thigh, the back of the leg. So we're straightening that leg out in front of you, using that strap to hold that leg in place. Walk the hand down the strap as much as you need to. Keep squeezing those toes back towards the shins. Holding it here in that hip flexor strengthening. Then your next breath in, open that left leg out to the side. So we're taking that weight into the right leg. We're opening through that left hip, squeezing the outside of that left glute to open that leg out. Hips stay neutral to the short edge, as do the shoulders. And then bring that leg back to the center. Release that strap. Step your left foot back. Find high lunge with the arms, raising the hands up to the ceiling. Sinking into those hips. Then release those hands down. Place the strap at the side of the mat. Step your right foot back to meet your left, plank position. And slowly lower to the floor or drop the knees. Do a vinyasa of your choice. Lifting the shoulders, squeezing them back on your up dogs. Making your way back to down dog, either chest to thighs, or rolling straight over those toes, lifting the hips and squeezing those heels back. So we're taking that exact same on the left side. So on your in-breath, your left leg lifts.
We take a bend into the knee, we turn the hips, the right heel squeezes down to the floor, left foot pushes to the right. Then realign the hips, bring the knee to the chest, gaze in between the hands as you step your left foot through. Find the strap again, bring those shoulders over the hips, tuck the tailbone down, lift the lower belly up, arms wide, back leg straight, front knees bent. Breathe in, raise those hands up to the ceiling, breathe out and lower them towards the back of the body. Lift up on your inhale, try not to flare the ribs, down on your exhale. 2 more of these, lift up, tether the ribs and hips, drop back down to the back of the body. Lift up, keep that front knee nice and bent, hips nice and low, feeling that stability through the hips, the mobility through the shoulders. Working both of the biggest joints of the body as we move around the mat in all planes of movement. When you bring your hands back down, step forward onto your left foot, bringing your right foot through. Hook that strap underneath that right foot. Then straighten that right leg out, pushing the heel away. Walk that hand down, that strap on the right side. Left hand comes to the hip. Toes of the right foot back. Push the heel away to straighten the leg. Keep the shoulders lifted. The weight into that left foot. The focal point on something in front of you. On your next in-breath, take that leg out to the side. You may have to change where that torso sits to get that equilibrium of the body. So you feel like your torso rocks over a little bit to that left side as that long right limb takes it over to the right. 1 more breath here. Bring that right foot back to the front. Bend the knee. Keep a hold of the strap. Slowly send your right leg back to the back of the mat. Raise the hands up to your high lunge arms. Then bring those hands down either side of that left foot. Step your left foot back to meet your right. Lower the body to the floor, either straight body or drop in the knees, either a little baby cobra or an up dog. Making your way back to down dog, either chest to thighs or rolling straight over the toes, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels back. Right side, lift up the right leg, bend your knee, stack up your hips, push your right foot to the left heel to the floor, shoulders neutral. Realign the hips, bring the knee to the chest. Gaze in between the hands as you step your right foot through. Drop your back heel internally. Wingmill the left arm up and over. We're going to find warrior 2. So we're just working with the strengthening of the shoulders here, trying to keep them in a long line, in line with the shoulders. Think about the lower belly drawing up, the lower tailbone tucking under. The right knee squeezing out to the right side of the mat to see that big toe on the right foot. This left thigh is slightly internally rotated with the energy going into that back, left outside edge of the left foot. Holding it in warrior just for another couple of breaths. Feel like somebody's reaching you to the front of the mat with the right hand, reaching you back to the back of the mat with the left hand. Maintaining that strength in the shoulders to keep these arms lifted, those deltoid muscles working, the tricep muscles to straighten those arms. Then release those hands behind your back, interlace the fingers, squeeze the shoulder blades together, squeeze those palms of the hands in towards each other. Then bringing your right shoulder towards your right knee, lifting your hands away from the back if it's comfortable, but only if those shoulders allow. So your chest should be on the inside of that right thigh now. The head coming almost in line with that right shin, that right shoulder touching onto that right knee. We're getting that lift and internal rotation of the shoulders. We're getting that openness through the hips, working both big joints of the body. One more breath here. Then release those hands back to the lower back. Bring that chest back over those hips. Reach out with the arms. Feel that stretch and length through the arms. Then bring those hands down either side of your right foot. Step back to a plank. Finish off a vinyasa of your choice. I'm taking the hover. Rolling through. Up into our up dog. Thighs staying away from me. Back to down dog. Lifting the hips. Squeezing those heels back. Ready to take those movements on your left side. Just have a little nod and shake of those heads. Your next breath in, raise up with the left leg, bend your knee, bring a stack of the hips, left foot to the right side, right heel to the floor. Bring that knee into the chest. Take a gaze in between the hands as you step your left foot through. Drop your back heel internally, raise your right hand up and over, finding that strong warrior stance. Left knee's bent, trying to aim to get that left thigh parallel to the mat. Left knee squeezing out to the side to get that stretch on the inner groin of that left thigh. That right thigh's internally rotated, the energy pushing into the outside of that right foot. Shoulders are working hard to keep those long limbs lifted. Keeping lower belly lifted, tailbone tucked. Head in line with the spine, crown, thoracic and cervical, lumbar spine, sacrum, all stacked one on top of the other to get that good flow of prana throughout that body. One more breath here. Then bring the hands behind the back, interlace the fingers, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Then bring that left shoulder in towards that left knee. The thigh to the inside, the chest to the inside of the thigh. Arms lift away from the lower back if your shoulders are happy to do so. The head is more in line with the shin now as we're dropping it down. Keep energetically pushing through those feet. Back leg stays straight, front leg stays bent. Shoulders are getting that mobility movement by lifting those hands away from the lower spine. One more breath here. Then release those hands to the back. Shoulders come back over the hips. Arms come out wide to stretch them just for a breath. Then windmill the hands down, either side of the left foot. Step back to plank. Choice vinyasa of yours. I'm taking the knee drop and tucking the toes. Bringing the body down to the floor. Rolling through, up, lifting the chest. Then making my way back to down dog. Lifting the hips or chest back to thighs. Or meeting back in down dog for a breath. Then coming down onto the knees, either a moment to take on some water or go into child's pose, whichever works for you, whatever that body requires. So we have another flow of taking lunge position with eagle arms and then transitioning from lunge into warrior three, but keeping the eagle arm grip. So eagle arm can either be just the back of the hands together or find a double wrap to find each palm. So finding our way back into downward facing dog, maybe transitioning through tabletop, then through plank, to find that good alignment of your down dog without fussing with those hands or feet. So your next breath in, we raise up with that right leg, we take a bend into the right knee, we push the right foot to the left and open the hip to the right. Realign the hips, bring the knee into the chest. Take a gaze in between the hands as you step your right foot through. Bring your arms up towards the ceiling to find a lunge position. Then bring them back down to shoulder height. Right elbow hooks under the left to either find the back of the hands or the palms. Then raise those elbows up to shoulder height. Sink into those hips a little lower. Encourage that left heel back a little further. Try not to flare those ribs. Lower belly lifts, tailbone tucks. Holding it in lunge position with eagle arms just for a breath. Then taking the weight onto your right foot, lifting your left leg up to hip height
and bringing those shoulders in line with the hips. So a nice long line from the heel of the left foot all the way up to the crown of the head, holding it in eagle arm, warrior three. Not for too long, finding those muscles in the ankle on that right leg, holding that posture. Try not to let that left hip lift too high. Try and keep it in line with the right. Keep lifting through those elbows. One more breath here. Then release the grip, release the hands to the floor. Step your left foot back, right foot back to meet. Vinyasa of your choice. I'm taking option two, releasing to the mat. Rolling through, lifting up the chest into my up dog. And then making my way back to down dog. Lifting the hips, squeezing those heels back. To take that exact same on the left side, always do the same in a generic class, left to right. Your next breath in, your left leg lifts. We bend your knee, we stack up the hips, push the left foot to the right, right heel to the mat. Shoulders nice and neutral. Realign the hips, bring the knee to the chest, gaze in between the hands. Step your left foot through. Keeping the hips low, raise the arms. Find your high lunge position. Then bring the arms back down to shoulder height. This time your left elbow hooks underneath. Find the back of the hands or the palms to get your eagle arms. Sink low, right leg straight, left leg bent, ribs drawn back, elbows lifted. One more breath here. Then transitioning onto your left leg, lifting your right leg up to hip height, heel in line with the hips, in line with the head. Eagle arms, so we're stretching those rhomboid muscles. Try not to let the right hip lift, keep it in line with the left. Notice the muscles in that standing left leg as they're working hard to hold this warrior three eagle arm pose. Long breaths in, long breaths out. Maybe raise those elbows a little higher. I don't seem to have too much space to do that. One more breath. Release the hands, release the right foot to the back, left foot to meet the right foot. I'm taking option three with Chaturanga Vinyasa. Rolling through, lifting the chest, thighs, staying away. Making my way back to down dog, lifting those hips, squeezing those heels back. Coming down onto the knees, just take a moment, either taking on a water break, or child's pose, or even doing another vinyasa if that's what you wish. I'm just going to do a little bit into these IT bands on the next pose. So we're not necessarily coming back up to standing now, we're starting to bring it back down to the floor. So bringing yourself into tabletop position first, stepping yourself back to plank, getting that alignment, shoulders over the heel of the hands, lifting with the hips, not pushing with those hands and those feet. So bringing your right foot to the outside of the right hand, then dropping your left heel out to the side, turning your right toes off the mat, bringing your left hand slightly further forward. Breath in, lift that arm up and over and sink into the hip. Breath out, bring that right hand back up and over and lift the hips back to the ceiling. Breath out, drop the hips. Breath in and lift the hips. Breath out, drop the hips. Breath in, lift the hips. So you should feel it on the outside of both thighs. Drop the hips, breath out. Lift the hips, breath in. Keep moving that arm so we're getting that mobility through the shoulder. As we go in and out of these two places, the lift and lower of the hip, the stretch of the outside, particularly that right IT band that runs from the hip down to the knee. A big strong band of muscle. One more. And then bring that hand back, Come onto the toes of that back foot. Step your right foot back to meet the left. And take a vinyasa of your choice. I'm releasing all the way to the floor. Rolling through, lifting up the chest. Making my way back to down dog. Pushing into those hands, pushing into the feet, lifting the hips, squeezing those heels back. Same on your left side, so the left foot comes to the outside of the left hand. Turn the toes out off the mat. Drop that right heel out to the outside of the mat. Step your right hand slightly forward. Reach forward with the left hand. Take a breath out. Drop into that right hip. Breath in, lift. Breath out. Drop into that hip. Breath in, lift. Breath out, drop. Try not to hyperextend through that right arm if you can, unlike me, that does tend to do that. And drop. Feeling it on the outside of that left thigh as you move in and out of hip drops and lifts. That left arm moving with those hips to get a little bit of shoulder mobility. As we know, hips and shoulders for this practice, working with both the two biggest joints of the body. Make this the last one. Bring that hand back down, come onto the toes of the back foot. Step your left foot back to plank. And vinyasa of your choice. I'm taking that chaturanga option, hovering in the middle. Rolling through, lifting the chest. Making my way back to down dog, lifting the hips, squeezing the heels back. Then coming down onto the knees, onto the toes. Swing the legs around, bringing the feet to the front of the mat, bums into the centre. Give those legs a little bit of a shake. So I'm just going to face you now to do some mirror imaging. So we're taking ourselves into an external rotation. So taking a bend into your left knee. Bring that left knee out to the side, sole of the left foot into that right thigh. So bring your left hand down onto the mat. Reach your right hand up and over and feel that stretch down that right side as you reach over, down the left side as you reach over to the right side. On your breath in, come back to the centre, release the left hand down, reach up with the right hand and over towards your left. Back to the centre, same again to the other side. Back to the centre, one more over to the other side. And back to the centre. Reach the hands up to the ceiling. This time fold forward over that straight leg, tracking your shoulders towards those feet, making sure the toes are being fully drawn back towards the shins on that right leg. The shoulders are facing that right foot. Elongate, breathe in. On your inhale, use some abdominal contraction. On your exhale to maybe fold a little further over those legs. Try not to curl up through that upper back. Try and push that chest forward, gaze forward to try and fold over that leg. It might be that you're up here with this position. Maybe that this is your range of movement, but if that works and that feels the stretch, but try and think about pushing that knee into the floor, engage that thigh to help that happen. Holding just for a few more breaths. And then bringing yourself back up. Bring your left hand behind your back, fingertips pointing to the back, right hand onto the right hip. Push into that right heel, lift those hips up to the ceiling, maybe straighten up through that right arm, pointing it back towards the back of the room. Feeling that stretch down that right side of the body, all the way from the fingertips down to the toes. Then bring that bum back to the mat. Straighten out with that left leg. Take a bend into your right leg. Bring that right knee out to the side. Bring your left hand to the outside of the hip. Raise the right hand and reach over to the left. Come back to centre. Place the right hand down. Lift the left hand and reach over to the right. Back to the centre. Reach up and over. Back to the centre. Reach up and over. Back to the centre. Reach both hands up to the ceiling. Shoulders track towards the foot. Start to fold over that straight left leg. Elongate, inhale, abdominal contract on your exhale. Keep pushing that knee into the floor, engaging that thigh. Remember the hands come to wherever you reach. Try not to roll in the back. Push the chest forward. Straighten through that upper part of the spine. And then try and pivot from the hips to take that fold. Long, easy breaths in, long breaths out. Then walking those hands back up towards the hips, bringing your right hand behind you, fingertips pointing to the back of the room. Then push into your left heel, lifting the hips up, reaching back with that left hand, stretching through every part of that left side. And then bringing those hips back down. Bringing the knees in towards the chest. Elbows to the inside of the knees. Taking a hold of the big toes with the index finger and middle finger, so the two peace fingers. Push the chest forward, roll the shoulders back. Find a little balancing point here. This might be where you stay, with just the heels slightly lifted off the mat. Try not to let that lower back curl. Push that chest forward. On your in-breath, straighten up through the left leg. On your out-breath, release it back to meet the right. In-breath, straighten up through your right leg. Out-breath and release back. One more on each side. And release, just getting into those hips again. And release. This time, if you wish to do both legs, straightening up through both legs, holding it in the balance on that space between the sit bones and the lower spine, pushing the heels away, lifting the chest up as much as you can. Squeeze those thighs to straighten those legs, straighten those knees. One more breath here. And then take a bend back in both knees. Give those knees a hug into the chest and just let those foreheads come down towards those knees to curl through that back. And then bringing your feet to the front of the mat. I'm going this way because of what I'm going to be doing. Straighten the legs out long. Make sure you have your strap or belt. Make your way slowly down towards the mat with control. Using those long limbs, that core strength, to release ourselves down to the floor. When the shoulders arrive and the head arrives, just let everything relax. Maybe just give those hips a little rock from side to side. Then taking a hold of the strap, taking a bend into your right knee, bring that strap over that right foot. Keeping a hold of the strap in the right hand. Your left hand comes out to a T shape, so we have a counterbalance on that left side. So push that right heel away, right toes back to the shins, keeping both shoulders plugged into the mat. Start to send that right leg out to the outside, right side of the mat. Maybe bringing the elbow just to give a little bit of help, a little bit of support, a little stabilizer. Try and keep that left bum cheek as much on the floor as you can. Taking that right leg down as low as you can before this left hip starts to lift. If you want to bring that left hand onto the hip to keep it down, maybe that will help
with getting a little more stretch from the inside of that groin. The gaze is up to the ceiling, holding it in this open external rotation, this groin stretch. One more breath here. And then with the muscles of those inner adductors, try and raise that leg again, back up to the centre without bending that knee. Bring it back up to the middle. Take a hold of the strap in both hands and try and encourage a little more of a hamstring stretch by bringing those toes either over the eye gaze or maybe a little further beyond towards the back of the room. Keeping that leg as straight as you can, feeling that posterior chain stretch through the back of that chain of muscles, from the Achilles to the calves, up through to the lower hamstrings, the upper hamstrings into the glutes. One more breath here. And then release that foot out, thread your left foot in. I'll have to take it and turn my body so I'm in space to let the leg come out. So the right leg's now straight, the left leg's lifted. We take a hold of the strap in the left hand, the right hand comes out as that counterbalance. And then take that left leg out to the side with control, bringing it down as much as you can towards the floor, keeping both hips neutral. Try not to let this right hip lift. Try and keep both shoulders on the floor if you can. Feeling the stretch on the inside of that left thigh, into that groin, into those adductors. If you want to bring that right hand down onto the hip just to keep it controlled, gaze is up to the ceiling. Just see if you can use the breath to release any muscles that you're holding. It may be that this leg is still quite high for you. If that's the case and it's a little bit stressful to keep it there, just pull on the strap a little harder. One more breath here. Then thinking about switching those muscles on the inside of the thigh that we've just stretched, to raise that leg back up to the centre, using muscle strength to lift the leg. Then take a hold of the strap with both hands. Try and get a little more of a stretch through those hamstrings, Achilles and calves by drawing the toes either to the eye gaze or just beyond. Pushing that heel away, using the thigh muscles to straighten that leg a bit further. One more breath here. And then release that strap and just place that strap at the side of the mat. Bring the knees in towards you, into the chest. Give them a squeeze. Bring the elbows then to the inside of the knees, taking a hold of either the shins, the ankles, the outside of the feet, or the big toes. Trying to pull those knees as close towards the armpits, the thighs on the outside of the ribs. Trying to stack the heels over the knees, bringing them in as tight as you can, but keeping that lower back as much on the floor as possible. Maybe have a little rock from side to side, just to massage that spine, thanking it for practice. And then bringing yourself to stillness. Bringing the knees to the inside of the elbows. Maybe taking one last stretch of the hamstrings with both legs. Pushing those heels away, squeezing that lower back to the floor. One more breath here. Then release the feet down to the mat. Bring the feet out to the edges of the mat. Feet drop out to the side. Hands down by the sides of the body. Fingers gently curled. Push into the heels. Tuck under the bum. Draw the belly back. Lower that bum back to the floor so you've taken a little of that arch out of the lumbar spine. Give those hips a little rock from side to side, massaging into that lower back. And then just allow everything to settle. Maybe turn of the head in one direction, maybe back through centre and over to the other side. Making sure it's in line with the spine when you've done so. Think about those hips. Do they feel a little more mobile? Do those shoulders have a little more movement? Those two major joint spaces, the pelvis that supports the whole of the body, the shoulders that support the upper body. Close the eyes, let the mouth open and the tongue drop away from the roof of the mouth. Feel softness over the forehead and the jaw. Think about space through those collarbones. The comfort of the spine from the neck down to the lower part, the sacrum. Upper limbs and lower limbs relaxed. Noticing the sensations of the heat of the room, the sounds of the inside, and the sounds of the outside. The temperature. Sensation of touch of the body on the floor and all those parts that are coming in contact with the mat. The clothes that are touching the skin. Being aware of your natural automatic breathing. Consolidating everything you've just done through this practice. Starting now to wriggle the fingers, wriggle the toes. If you wish to stay in relaxation for a little longer, just press pause. If you're coming with me, bring a little more movement into the ankles and the wrists, into the elbows, into the knees. If you wish to take a full body stretch, stretching the hands up and over the head, into the fingertips, into the toe tips, then bringing those hands back up and over, bringing one knee at a time into the chest. Maybe have a little rock of the body from side to side. Maybe make circles with the knees in one direction and back in the other direction. Then choice to either roll onto your right side or left side, or come up into seated, rolling up and down the spine a couple of times. And then making your way into a seated position, either cross-legged on the knees or the legs out in front straight, bringing the hands on top of the thighs. Take a nice long easy breath in, long breath out. Reach the hands up and over the head, palms come together at the top. Bring the hands to the chest, soft gaze to the floor. Have peace in your thoughts, have peace in your words.